Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for to all the panelists here to share their perspective on a very important topic. Before I dive into, get them into to share their views on the topics, just two perspectives, right, on different sides of the spectrum. Perspective number one is the perspective of how supply chain disruptions in the past several months have actually affected businesses deeply. You see a contraction in margins across sectors, so the RM prices have gone up, and people have generally found it very difficult to pass on the prices, right, as the customers or is in a B2B business.
Hello. Yeah. Or if B2B business to your customer, auto companies have been sitting on an order book which runs into 1.5 years. So many would see this as loss of sale, right? Loss of opportunity, loss of contraction of margin. On the second side of the spectrum, this has been a significant opportunity for people to exploit and explore. If you follow the China plus one, now Europe plus one shifts that are happening in supply chain, there's massive shift. There's a complete rethink of supply chain that is happening across the boardrooms. We've seen that play out in pharma, chemical, specialty chemical. You gave the example about Apple, sir. A very interesting fact. Apple last year did 10,000 crores of exports out of India. 10,000 crores. It has taken 15 to 20 years for auto companies or chemical companies to send that much or get to that revenue scale. And Apple has done that in 3 to 4 years. So massively opportunity rich as well. And we'll explore all of this as we discuss. So let me start with the topic, which is, last 3-4 years, and COVID, one would say, was a bit of a accelerator, but not the main actor. We are seeing some of these mega trends play out. Last 3-4 years, supply chain has changed, right? Role of supply chain has changed. So as Yash, maybe let me start with you. What do you think has changed? What's the role of supply chain in organizations? The difference between, if you look at, especially last 2-3 years.
Yeah, thanks. The supply chains have been evolving forever, but the last 2-3 years obviously have given a shot in the arm. Every child, every person on the street probably know what a logistician is today, and what is the importance that a supply chain department brings to an organization. As the pandemic hit, so I'll divide it into two. One is pandemic and one post-pandemic so-called period now. So in the pandemic, supply chain became the center of discussions at all boardrooms. Everything was related to the disruptions. I think almost 95-98% of global organizations would have seen disruptions in their supply chains. So everything took center stage for all organizations, and they had to right from their raw material to their mid-mile operator to the end consumption to the ports they use, to the airports they use, to the transportation they use. Everybody right at the top C-level was involved in making decisions and trying to make sure that there is business continuity for them. And right from the pre-pandemic stage, when supply chains were left for supply chain managers or shipping managers to handle, and things moved to the C-level, there was a C shift in the way the business was now getting moved. From cost, it became to business continuity. So it was not so much so about just cost. Even if you're doing a 3x and making sure your production lines were working, your product was able to get to the shelves, it was on. And now post that period, I think, we've kind of seen the backside of the pandemic now, and things are slowly moving back to the normalcy of what we had pre-pandemic. But there will be definitely certain things that the organizations are going to keep forever. Making sure that they have raw materials coming from multiple suppliers and not one, who could be based out of completely different locations of the world. Nearshoring, offshoring, China plus one, or as many pluses that you want to add to your raw material cycle, you would. How much of an inventory do you hold? so that you never get into a disruption. We've been talking about just in time, etc. But just in time did not help in the pandemic. So you needed to have enough inventory of raw materials to get your lines working. Uh, where all do you sell to? Like I said, what all ports and airports you use. So there have been huge amount of changes in the way supply chains are dealt with.
Thank you, Yash. And Vijay, let me get back to you. You run a global supply chain, plants in India, plants outside India. Again, same question back to you. Traditional view of supply chain was cost, minimize inventory, support new product development. What's changed?
Right. So, I would answer this question in two parts. One, focusing on the global side, and two is the India side. Now, good thing about what has changed. 3 years back, if something happened in supply chain, uh, the board members and the table at the top would ask the question, how did it happen? Kaise ho gaya? Right? And today, when such a problem comes in, a disruption comes in, what do we do next? So there's a change in attitude, which I really love it. Okay, that acceptance is there that some things can happen, and now we all want to get rid of or overcome every problem that comes in under the way. Now, 3 years, needless to say, there was pandemic, there's supply chain constraints, there's semiconductor issues, there's manufacturing issues, labor issues, Ukraine war. Everything has happened, and everything has been beating the supply chain. Like he said, the good thing that has happened is at the board, earlier we used to talk about finance, investments, marketing, product, ROI, but the word supply chain was missing. But now supply chain has made its way, and supply chain is happening now. Now, what has changed? Obviously, as Avinash pointed out, just in time is no more a technology, methodology, process anymore. If you talk about chemicals, if you talk about RM, if you talk about commodities, electronics, all these things have moved away from just in time. Inventorization, where managing the right inventory and being resilient has become very important. To supply chain network response is also very important. And now while we are talking about China plus one or source plus one, even now supply chain people want to say network plus one. They need at least two networks running at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. So that's something very much which has made foray into it. Other thing is in terms of technology, expedition in terms of deploying technology has taken place. Now people want to have digital systems. They want to run things automatically. That's another big change that has come in. The third major one is monitoring risks. So earlier it was so that, risk was taken as a tick in the box kind of an exercise where, all the typical good management style would say that please monitor or take care of your risks. But today it is not just understand the risk, but it is about keep yourselves ready. How do you react to a particular risk, which becomes a little more red at a given point in time? So that is a third point, which has made a big change. People are really working in order to make the systems much more resilient, look at the risk, be ready. And sometimes I would say, if you look at automotive sector or electronic sector, their factories are absolutely ready for having another risk which can run another 12 months. So that's the game plan that people are playing with.
Well, thank you. And on a lighter note, last 3 years, CEOs seem to have forgotten their jobs and doing CSO's role. And this is definitely top of the mind of the board and the big part of the CEO's agenda. Let me move from, I think when the discussion on supply chain disruption has always been about doom and gloom, I want to move away from that a little bit. I want to talk about the opportunity that it's unlocking. And we're seeing massive, and some are once a decade, once a century shifts that we will see. which is leading to new business model unlocks. And let me get Avinash you on this. What kind of opportunities are you seeing given everything that's happening around us? And you can contextualize that for your business, because it looks like a lot of businesses are doing really well.
Yeah, yeah. So a little bit of background of our businesses that we do. So we are in the restaurant service industry, food service, operate around 1,800 restaurants across the country for Domino's and other brands. And it's a very complex supply chain because we supply fresh food, temperature controlled, perishable, naked foods across these 1,800 stores almost on a daily basis, right? And we maintain almost 99.5% fill rates. So obviously a lot goes behind this. It's a very front end function for us. So while we say that the industry, for the industries as such, supply chain has come to the fore, I think we have always been a front end function. And beyond the cost and availability, right? What we focus on typically where supply chain adds a lot of value in our businesses is the innovation and the speed to market. Yeah. So the one thing which has changed in the last few years is a lot more convenience, customization, requires a lot of speed to market, right? Supply chain plays a big role in driving this speed to market and customization of all the products that are offered. Yeah. The conceptualization to the launch time typically in consumer industries has gone down significantly. And the customer segmentation has become that much more complex and elaborate, right? Supply chain plays a big role now. And yeah, the board and the CEO, they look forward to how fast we can do it, how much new we can do, and at what optimum cost we can do that. Yeah. So that is one change which has happened distinctly. The second place where supply chain plays a critical role and has started doing more of it is in terms of the complete, creating the ecosystem with all the business partners. Typically, any supply chain person would be interacting with hundreds of business partners, right? And creating an advocacy group for many of the common interests, right? In terms of sustainability, in terms of ESG, etc. Supply chain plays a big role and has started doing that. Yeah. So that is the second thing. Overall, in terms of the industry, for us, it's a lot more convenience, a lot more hygiene, a lot more trust factor which has come in. And the challenges have gone up for us multifold in ensuring that we deliver right every time, all the time.
Very interesting, Avinash. I think looks like a lot of the differentiators that one could, one needs to have in the business, right? Supply chain plays a almost tip of the arrow right now in thinking through that, right? How to develop that versus others. Let me go to you, Suman. Lot of people would think of D2C companies and the new age companies born during this disruption, right? And you had the luxury of actually thinking supply chain from a clean sheet, so to speak, right? To take into account all of this, while a lot of traditional companies have had to kind of rethink, redeploy, revisit their business model. So as a new and startup, how have you seen this opportunity? How do you see supply chain in your whole business model and value proposition?
As Clovia being a D2C brand, our prime focus was always delivering the right product to the customer and as fast as possible. So we have always been a very tech-led brand with focus on managing the inventory, because we almost have around 80,000 plus SKUs that we manage on a daily basis. So for us, tech has been playing a very important role to manage and justify the supply chain in a smooth manner. Having said that, for us, it is important that the supply chain partners go to whatever depths of the country they can and have the maximum number of pin codes. We are currently almost servicing around 27,000 plus pin codes. So we would of course want more and more, because now the tier 3, tier 4 cities have come up and started shopping online as well. Just because of the pandemic, where the supplies were not there. So we really had to get into that level. So that is where we have been pushing our partners, pushing our partners and all to, spread as much as possible and make it as fast as possible, because time is the key essence out here. So for us, tech, as I said, tech has been pretty much helpful in entirely gauging the requirement, replenishing the timelines, and getting the product as fast and as needed, so that there's not too much of overload in the warehouse spacing, and of course the supply chain.
Thanks, Suman. I think many would say that D2C runs on two engines. One is the product, of course. Second is how efficiently you do a supply chain. I mean, both are crucial engines, and the time to market is crucial. I know that a lot of startup founders playing in the supply chain in the audience today. Let me move to Ashish. Ashish, last 4-5 years, we have seen a massive proliferation of startups in this space, right? Many of them have been very brave in picking up hard to solve problems, and they're rethinking about supply chain, how the whole ecosystem works, right, and the value chain works in a very fundamentally different way. So, as someone who's looked at a bunch of them in the past, what are some of the trends that you see in this space, and what role do you see for the startups, right, in terms of developing new collaboration models or developing the ecosystem for businesses?
Works and don't work. Thanks, Amrit. I think I want to talk about two perspectives. One is this conversation around supply chain, but I think at the core, we need to understand that businesses are built with a clear purpose to deliver customer delight, customer love, right? That's the fundamental premise. Businesses exist, businesses survive, businesses thrive largely on that particular area. Yeah. And what's evolving very rapidly is not the mechanics around supply chain, is the consumer expectations, right? So I think that's the core of it. And, that's what entrepreneurs, that's what companies are, trying to be ahead of and, delight that. So, we've got on the panel, we spoke about Domino's, right? Domino's have owned this 30-minute delivery space forever, right? Nobody has ever come close to that. Nobody can ever match that, right? So from a user perspective, from a consumer perspective, very straightforward. When I'm hungry, I'm urging for a pizza. Domino's is a go-to place because I don't want to wait. 30 minutes will be delivered. I know the standard, I know the quality, and so on and so forth, right? So at the core, it's the supply chain is geared to deliver that particular thing, and that's generating customer love. So we've got to remember that. Now, when Sambit spoke about disruption, a lot of people come to us to say that, hey, I'm going to beat Domino's in their particular game. I'm going to set a similar network and build it up, and our answer always is, it's not going to happen, right? You will never manage that particular scale and, defeat Domino's. But here's an example. I'm just kind of thinking as to how entrepreneurs think. One entrepreneur came, it's a very fascinating idea. He said, I've got a moving kitchen, right? And I'm flashing my moving kitchen. Inside the kitchen is all, think of it as robotics at work, right? You're able to see on the app that my kitchen is like 3 kilometers away from me or 5 kilometers away from me, and the route broadly is taken. You're able to see how many orders are being built and the direction this particular kitchen is taking, and you place an order, right? And this kitchen takes that particular order, starts moving in that particular direction, and by the time it kind of reaches your house, it's warm, freshly made pizza delivered at your doorstep, right? From a customer experience perspective, it beats what Domino's are delivering, right? From a scalability perspective, it's such a tough one to deliver, right? But now take it to another dimension, right? Autonomous vehicles is going to be big pretty soon. Just imagine these small kitchens just kind of moving around in different neighborhoods and stuff like that. It changes the game, right? And that's how entrepreneurs thinking, right? We're talking about China plus one, Europe plus one, because of what we've seen with the Russian-Ukraine situation, because of what we've seen with the pandemic. But, we spoke about at the panel, that it's China plus many, right? Yeah. Europe plus many. And that many will not be these large central workshops. This is the era for nano factories to come into play. This is the era for smaller units to come into play that And accordingly, therefore, the supply chain basically gets built for that particular area. I spoke about this moving van. We are evaluating another company which is building these nano factories for D2C companies, right? Within D2C, they're targeting cosmetics, they're targeting nutraceuticals, and think of it like an ATM-sized machine, right? And it's clever use of technology. We have different pieces, different components built in together, on-demand manufacturing of those needs, right? So, you place an order that I want this particular, let's say, a cream, a moisturizer. It gets manufactured then and there, packaged then and there, delivered to you, sometimes within minutes, sometimes within hours. Changes the game, right? So that's one area in terms of how disruption is happening, and we'll see that with the clear purpose as to how do you improve customer experience. The other question, which is very relevant, is to saying what's happening in the ecosystem. And, from our perspective, this is the period. We in India and globally, we've seen a lot of what we call, let's say, disruptors. Yeah. Uber Freight came into play, or a Rivigo in India came into play, or delivery in India came into play as challengers to take on the large incumbents, right? I think that will continue to happen, but the real action today is where enablers are coming into play to make sure the incumbents or the larger play gets better, right? And a larger player is not the traditional 30-year-old, 50-year-old, 100-year-old company. Even somebody like an Amazon today needs help, right? We were talking about it yesterday in one of our meetings. Then in quick commerce, they changed the game, right? So how does Amazon adopt to what a Zepto is delivering or a Blinkit is delivering? Two 19-year-old boys came to India, changed the equation, and everybody's dancing to the particular tunes. Is the model profitable? We don't know, right? But now, these enabling companies will come in and say, I'm going to work with incumbents and make sure that you're equipped to take on the so-called disruptors. I'll park here and, we'll spend some
No,
more
I
time.
think great points. And Utsav, let me pick on a couple of points with you. As you think about your supply chain, whether as you developed it or as you improve it, right? There's a school of thought which is quite traditional that I own my supply chain, right? Including control, including the assets, but that's changing fast because there are, like Ashish is saying, specialists who just do some things better than what you can ever do or build, right? As you think about your supply chain of the future, how are you thinking about this collaboration models? What do you own? What differentiates how do you own, and where do you get the ecosystem at play?
Sure. So I think it's a perfect segue from what Ashish was saying, because let's face it, there's this age-old saying that you do what you do best and outsource the rest. Because we're living in times where super specialization has kicked in. We're living in times where models are evolving to suit consumer needs. And I think the holy grail really is that we're all subservient to evolving consumer behavior. If we actually take a step back, there have been a few watershed moments that have set or conditioned us to think a certain way for how these expectations are coming into being, right? COVID was, of course, one trigger, but principally, it just allowed for D2C and digital businesses to become mainstream. And that was an irreversible shift in terms of how India will continue to shop. Amazon has been around. Amazon has been around a while now. But with these smaller new age businesses taking it on themselves to own the piece of consumer delight and customer delivery, need help. Not everybody's got the might to build it. The clear three takeaways that have come about in this is that how new age businesses think is determining how they're acting. And therefore, those boardroom agendas are stemming from that. Clearly, the new age businesses differentiate with the traditional ones on agility because the speed of decision making, speed of action, the ability to learn from mistakes and pivot is much higher. And therefore, there's willingness to fail and then adapt. The second bit is they're definitely more creative. There's room for them to think of non-traditional ways of solving for problems, which is why in conventional realm, you would think of somebody driving a van around trying to collect orders as a ludicrous idea. But in all fairness, these are models that exist, right? And I think the sheer creativity to how we're trying to solve for some of these problems are becoming mainstream. What has happened for us at Noise really is that we've had to come out of this situation not having to reinvent, but to rethink of ways of trying to solve for some of the problems. Last quarter, 3 out of 4 smartwatches that got manufactured in India were noise smartwatches. And who would have thought this was a reality 2 years ago? I think what's important in today's boardroom agendas, when we are taking some of these discussions at heart, we need to realize that there are 3 large anchors around which some of these decisions and conversations revolve. They are cost, speed, and time, right? And speed and time you could confuse, but I'll tell you where they are different, right? Because in all fairness, I don't think modern businesses today have the ability or the liberty and luxury of time to create tech stacks, to learn, have that growth curve, adapt, move on, because the consumer expectation today from a 14-day delivery has come down to 14 minutes. And that is changing some of the decisions. And therefore, beyond the collaborative model, there is no other option. You will have to rely on the might of some of these players who've architecturally set up a plug and play for businesses to thrive. And I think that is the way forward.
No, that's a very relevant point. And, as we, Bain, speak to we do a lot of supply chain work where there's a fundamental rethinking of supply chain. I don't think people are solving for one model. I think with resilience, you need to have a couple of parallel streams going into, what you do. But I think the bedrock of all of this is the emergence of technology. A lot of things that was fundamentally not possible 5 years back is possible now. And I would like to come visit this one. What is the role of technology? Because I'll tell you, again, on a funny note, on same D2 food tech, a lot of people, there are a lot of food tech companies who get the supply chain right, the food wrong. And that doesn't work. You need to have both working well. But the role of technology and how do you see that evolving? And I want to take 2 lenses to this. One, a more traditional company who is adapting to this, as we know, technology is hard to fix, easy to build, right? And we've seen a lot of traditional companies struggle with that. But let me start with you, Avinash, on this one. I think your 30-minute promise continues to be a promise that has held the test of time and inspired quite a few others. But how have you evolved?
So one evolution is that we used to do 30 minutes. We started around some 18 years ago. Today we do 20 minutes for almost 75% of our deliveries. And we do as much as within 12 minutes also, right? While the pizza preparation time remains 8 minutes. Yeah. And technology has had a big role to play in this. In Domino's world, we deliver even in 3 minutes. Yeah. In other countries, when the road conditions, etc. And the way technology helps is that there's a lot of AI which goes into this, whereby even before you have checked out on our app, we would know much earlier as to what order are you going to place. By the time you have checked out, probably the pizza is already moving out of the oven. Yeah. So that is the application of technology. Yeah. And of course, it requires a lot of tracking of bikes and riders and allocation of resources, etc. Right. So we have really evolved in the restaurant service world, and all courtesy the
Avinash, is it
technology.
fair to say that you actually spend as much to develop technology as to develop the taste of pizza for your future products?
We have a almost 200 engineers strong digital team in-house, right? And they work full time on this. So yeah. So Domino's, some analysts do say that it's more of a technology company than a pizza company.
Incredible,
Right, yeah.
incredible. Yash, let me come to you. You probably see a whole spectrum of people that you help with, right? Some who are probably still straddled with legacy technology, some probably on the cutting edge of it. How do you see this?
So logistics has been seeing, we surely considered a very traditional industry, till say 5-7 years ago when, a lot of these disruptive companies came along. who wanted to, build marketplaces out of our businesses. But traditionally, logistics has been known to be slow movers and very, very traditional. But obviously, a lot of the old traditional companies are also changing the way they do business, transact business. I mean, you see a large company like Maersk, for example. Today, they moved from there to Damco, which was a forwarding arm to speed to the final consumer. And now from there, they've actually disrupted that. They've closed that and they've moved to Twill, which is a model which is a digital model of their business end to end. So a lot of the traditional companies are playing with startup culture also, that they are trying to bring out a startup from within to add speed to the market. And technology is surely changing the way the old incumbents in our industry are looking at their business.
Thank you, Yash. Maybe last redirect before I open it up to the audience for Q&A. Ashish, this is for you. When it and this is with you on with an investor hat on. What would be your advice to supply chain startups, right? In terms of and given there is a bit of a funding winter, funders are getting selective, more pressure on proving the model, the economics. What would be the advice that you have for some of the startup founders here who are trying to crack really hard problems?
So I think if you're cracking a hard problem, if you have good insights in terms of the approach you need to take to solve for it, you will find capital. There's a lot of talk around funding winter, but India is flushed with capital. Yeah. So, the winter which we're seeing is mostly around growth stage, later stage companies, not too much around early stage companies, right? We as investors, we get excited when we meet founders with fire in the belly, with amazing stories and insights to share, and a nuance to the approach which we've not thought of, right? So as long as you felt the pain, you're passionate about solving for it, I'm pretty confident you'll find the right capital source as well. The only piece of advice I would do is, and that's true for all stages now, think about collaborating as early as possible. Yeah. Even for an early stage founder, it's important to kind of partner with the right kind of folks. There could be somebody who's kind of giving you hypothetically AR, VR solution, which is a bundle as part of your overall theme, right? So, you partner, you collaborate, come out with a better baked solution as opposed to thoughts on the table.
Thank you. So let me I'm sure there's a ton of questions for the panel. We got such an eclectic set of experiences on this stage here. So any questions? Yes, sir. Can you pass it on the mic, please?
Hello, my name is Sagar. We in both the sessions we are talking about digitalization, and for the information, the Chinese have got a digitalization in a big manner, whereas we are still at the helm of 4G. I don't think there is anything which you can do for it, but if you have to digitalize, and if you don't have the proper, digital space where you can work, and if all the time you are looking for, bites to come, it becomes very difficult for the startups. So they run away from India and they go to a better place. So unless and until the government makes wholesome arrangement for digitalization to be complete, I think it is a difficult task for startups, small companies, and maybe, foreign companies, bigger companies can come in. But it is difficult for a startups and a small companies or MSMEs to get into the business. Any take on the subject?
Sorry, please do. And I want Suman to take this also, because he's building, despite all the challenges, they're building a business along with.
First, on a lighter note, we're in India. India our tendency is to build infrastructure after this great amount of demand. हम सड़कें भी बाद में बनाते हैं जब पूरा ट्रैफिक जैम हो जाता है तो हम हल्के चलते हैं. This is India. Let's get used to that. Yeah. I think the 4G, 5G, 6G or whatever these frameworks are, these are all enablers. They kind of fast track some of the applications, not everything. From a digitization perspective, you've got to look at our transactions happening, right? And there are transactions happening in a seamless way. You know, people are consuming content on a YouTube or a TikTok or whatever that particular version is. People are using all kind of various UPI apps, payment apps to make transactions. People are booking air tickets, rail tickets on apps. People are shopping on different area. WhatsApp is transacting. So, you know, all that as that is enabled, there's no stoppage of consumption. So, you know, all I want to say is, you know, saying that, you know, entrepreneurs are moving to other countries, they could be moving to other countries for different reasons, to tap into capital, to tap into international clients, but they're servicing the Indian market. You know, the Indian market over the last 3-5 years is changed. You know, there's a tectonic shift overall, right? In terms of where the demand was coming from, how the demand is being fulfilled, and the manner and the approach we're taking that. So don't be a skeptic. You know, it takes time for all those big frameworks and policy changes to come. But at the ground, there's a lot of work which is going on.
So let me actually redirect to Suman. But as they say, this technology thing, I was hearing a very interesting thing. 2G was all about the messages, right? Just basic access and messages. 3G was all about browsing, because that's when you actually could open a browser and read something before your coffee got cold. 4G was all about video, right? 5G, actually, there's no clear-cut use case of 5G yet. All of us talk about IoT and all those things, but you know, it's ahead of its time. Well, yeah, it goes far, absolutely. So, but just a thought, I think it's a technology as an enabler, and I can tell you 5G in India, the rollout will be quite fast. So I don't think we'll be left behind on that. But let me go to Suman. You building a business. Why haven't you run away from India yet?
So on a lighter note, you know, wherever there's a problem, there's a business. So that's what the scope of things are. For us, it was a different problem that we were solving, because the access to customer on certain products and the depth of the product was not available. So that is why we jumped into this. So where we give more variety and more choice to women to buy, rather than just being restricted to those basic colors that they buy from a store. Having said that, you know, problems do keep on coming, right? I don't think the solution is to just run away from the problem, but to get and solve it. Like labor could be a problem which might come up. Skilling those labors could be a problem that's coming up. So we have taken an initiative of going into villages and training the women out there to upscale and train themselves up to a level. Maybe after a month or 2 months, they can actually start producing or start working in the factories that we have built. So I would see that as an opportunity, and of course, problems will keep coming. Today, this is a problem. Tomorrow, something else will come up.
Vijay, you want to come in?
Yeah, I mean, to be precise to the question, okay, Amazon is a passe, because government has launched the ONDC platform, like someone told here, you know, keep the core and outsource the rest. So on the ONDC platform, today a small Kirana fellow also can come on and do e-commerce. So it is coming, and it's going to hit like a big wave. And with so many 5G companies, you know, I come from a fiber optic manufacturing company who's involved in 5G a lot. Trust me, to monetize the investment of 5G, the telecom companies might even do grocery shopping, you know. Okay. So that money that's getting invested is huge. And I can tell you, governments in Europe, governments in Americas, or even East, when you're talking about China, Korea, they're very much afraid of making that investment. And unfortunately, in India, it's a private investment. And obviously, they will walk any mile to go and monetize. And you can see a lot of things happening. It could be a IoT, sensing, tracking, demand supply, AI, ML in terms of understanding, a lot of things. And all of these will be packaged as solution by a telecom provider and a core manufacturer.
Basically, you're saying we have to pay more.
Yeah. And
Okay.
ultimately,
Awesome.
customer will have to pay.
Indirect. Any other questions? Yes, please. Can you pass on a mic, please?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Amit Khanna representing Safe Express, and Safe Express is the pioneer leader of supply chain logistics in India. My question is related to ULIP, Unified Logistic Interface Platform, which has been recently launched by our Prime Minister on 17 September. So how do you see the future of ULIP and PM Gati Shakti in India by 2025, considering the India infrastructure and economic reforms? Thank you.
Go for it.
Yeah, so, I think I missed this particular topic where I told I'll talk about India. So the Gati Shakti model is going to be a game changer. In the Europe model, again, there would be such things that would happen where a lot of entrepreneurs are bringing in a lot of imaginary stuff at this point in time, which is going to become reality. And what are those imaginary stuff? For example, someone is manufacturing in Uttar Pradesh, which could be and I'm giving you some raw examples which are going to be happening. Someone is manufacturing a sari there, and it goes through multiple hands and comes with a big price tag. With this unit, what's going to happen? He has access that how he can send this direct to the customer to which place. And this is going to be a typical AI ML story where the system is going to tell that if it is January, where the maximum demand is going to come from. It could be South India because Pongal is happening big. And tomorrow, if it is coming Diwali, it is going to tell that which region is going to order more, right? And the person really knows. So he's not worried about logistics anymore. He only needs to go and look at the manufacturing. And when he look at manufacturing in the demand, he knows that which design sells more in which region, okay? So today it's going to be a very different world with UNIP within India. And that's the kind of success stories that we would see, and enablers are going to come. Those enablers will work with the producers, and then it's going to be a big change.
Yes, Yash. So PM Gati Shakti, basically all the various verticals of logistics have so far been working in silo, whether it is air, ocean, surface, they all have been kind of working in silos with separate ministries and separate logistics departments that have been taking care of them. So through PM Gati Shakti, the idea is to bridge that gap and bring all of them together, and a lot of clearances for a lot of large scale projects to get centralized. ULIP is also part of the same program that the idea is to digitally connect all the stakeholders of the industry, and whereas they can upload as well as consume data from it. In the first phase, there's going to be a lot of consumption of data for the government itself, because today everything is very fragmented, and that's going to happen. So I think by 2025, I think it's more of that integration to happen, and for various stakeholders to get benefit of will be probably in the phase post that.
Just to add on, there's a good thing that is happening. 3 years back, if I have to go and talk in a technology forum and talk about it, digitalization in supply chain was only meaning tracking, the logistics tracking. Okay. Now it is not that. It is we have to put the consumer in the front, and now demand planning, supply planning, inventory, and network optimization. These are the 4 things which are getting digitalized. Now, even in something like a UNIP, or it is Gati Shakti model, which is background of that, or the ONDC platform which is being developed, everything keeps customer in mind first, and they're integrating everything, and they're going to service exactly the demand and the supply, and logistics is just forgiven that it is being tracked.
Thank you. As you can see, probably 45 minutes is a short time for there's so much to share, the panel. So really thank you all for coming over here, sharing your insights and experiences. I think the panel members will hang around a little bit. I'm making this commitment from your side, maybe 15, 20 minutes. So please, if you have any specific questions for them, please do find them. But thank you for the time and the opportunity to talk about supply chain. I think I would just leave the audience with one last thought. I mean, just the optimism that you heard on this stage is proof that I think policy frameworks are important. They're enabling, but what has succeeded in India is the sense of optimism and the entrepreneurial drive to make things happen. And each of these panel members here have shown that. So thank you all. Thank you very much.